It's never gone that smooth.
It has never gone that smoothly.
Oh gosh, cool. Every time I've done it in the past, every time I've done it like three other times, two maybe. It's been like this big long wait. So yay! I'm so glad it went so smoothly
Yes.
today. Awesome. So, Konita, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Konika Ray Wong, the founder of Girl Power Science and the author of One in a Million. Let me flash the book. I always have to flash the book. It's a first workout periods for kids ages 4 and up. And yeah, excited to be here to chat with you.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your mission. So, your mission and your why behind writing the book.
Yeah, so Girl Power Science, or GPS, empowers girls to navigate puberty with confidence by focusing on body literacy education. So I created a roadmap to body literacy, and there are 10 topics on the roadmap.
I love that so much. I have two kiddos who have not yet entered puberty. It's going to probably happen pretty soon now, after meeting you and learning about how, at what a young age it can start. So I'm actually like really interested in just learning some stuff from you around, puberty and what to expect, and then of course we'll get into a little bit of, eating disorder awareness and some of the things that may come up with that.
Yes. So, like you said, puberty is starting earlier. Modern puberty starts as early as second grade in girls. Girls start 2 to 3 years earlier than boys, and puberty is lasting longer. It's lasting a decade.
Wow.
So it's just such a pivotal, important time in our kids' lives.
Yeah.
Um, and what's happening is a lot of schools teach puberty education in fourth or fifth grade. And with girls starting in second, two things that, so breast buds develop in second grade, which is the definitive, like, she started puberty. For a handful of girls. Honestly, we need more data for me to tell you, like, concretely how many. There's not enough research on it. But what's happening is weight gain, increased appetite, and a rounder belly, actually storing more fat in your belly area. All of these are healthy signs of growth associated with starting puberty. And if the education isn't out there until fourth or fifth grade, but some girls are starting in second and third grade, then they and sometimes their parents are noticing these changes. And so I taught at a girls' school for 16 years. And starting in third grade in the dining room, I would hear talk about dieting. And what aligns with that is, this lack of, I guess, awareness that all of these things just go along with it. It makes perfect sense that if your body is growing, you're having this growth spurt, that you're going to have an increased appetite. And so, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's scary to even think about, just like at such a young age, dieting and worrying about how their body's changing. So I feel like as a parent, being really informed about how I can support my child with these body changes, is really important. So, so thank you for your book. And I would love to hear a little bit about, I know we talked a little bit before this live about body literacy, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that from you.
Yeah. So body literacy is literally like reading our body. So our bodies are like a compass, and we have to learn how to read them. And there's so much noise around that can make that confusing. From the basic things of kids in school, or I work with a lot of kids and teachers. So kids, teachers, you get so busy, you don't even drink water when you're like listening to those body cues and drinking when you're thirsty. Using the bathroom, like so many teachers do not drink enough water.
Yeah.
And take those bathroom breaks as often as they need to. And then you add in also hunger cues. School days are busy. And so body literacy is just tuning into your body, listening to your body. That's what I say to my daughter and my students all the time when they ask me complicated questions. The first thing is, all right, listen to your body. What does it tell you?
Oh, I love that. So yeah, and kind of like how I describe that, because in the work that I do with intuitive eating, a big part of intuitive eating is essentially how I like to describe it is having a conversation with your body, like opening up the line of conversation, right? Our body's always communicating with us, but are we listening? Are we listening? And I call that, essentially, I think it's the same thing, right? I call it body attunement. It's also called interoceptive awareness, but it's the ability to actually tune in and hear, so to speak, what our body's asking of us or telling us, because our bodies are communicating with us right now. You know, everyone listening to this, watching this, your body's communicating something to you, but are you listening? And then we take it a step further, not only listening, but also responding. So we notice we're thirsty, or we notice we have to go to the bathroom. Are we taking care of that need, or are we suppressing it and pushing it down? And I did want to just take a moment to touch on one thing. One of the questions that I got from someone was essentially around what do we do when a parent maybe controls food a little bit, you know, out of honest concern. It might be an honest concern, like with sugar intake or something like that, but that can also interrupt some of that body literacy, right? And also that body attunement to be able to make internal decisions. So we have to also be mindful about how much we're trying to control what our children's internal compass is telling them.
Yeah, that sense of agency and that
Mm-hmm.
autonomy
Mm-hmm.
is, I love that you talk about rebellion. Like you talk
Mm-hmm.
about the more that we have this good, bad morality, that the rebel inside all of
Mm-hmm.
us, then,
Yeah.
yeah, what you said about that in one of your reels was just really interesting. And then we all know that puberty is a time of rebellion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when you want to become independent and be your own self. And if you're trying to put more rules on top of that, that just
Mm-hmm.
with their brain remodel is a disaster. It's just a power struggle in the
Yeah.
making.
Yeah, the food rebellion is really real. And so it's just like in our home, what we do is we don't call sugar bad, right? Obviously, my kids can't eat sugar all day long. They wouldn't feel good, but it's not bad. And we just provide a variety of food. And, you know, based on that food, they can kind of determine what and how much, right? And then also, you know, being mindful to encourage our children to check in with their body, kind of what you were saying with the body literacy, like always going back. Like if my daughter has a tummy ache, I don't shame her for having a tummy ache, but I might be like, just encourage her to start to notice how that physically feels. And then, you know, ask her questions like, maybe like, what could we do different next time so that we don't feel that way?
Yeah. Um, I definitely, so in the body literacy, in the whole scope and sequence, um, there's digital literacy as well as, body image and all of these topics. What I notice is a common thread though, that when there's a scarcity in their home, whether we're talking like they come in and they tell me I'm not allowed to watch, or I'm not allowed to be on my device for
Mm-hmm.
this amount of time, and it's really strict in their
Mm-hmm.
home, or whether sugar, intake
Mm-hmm.
is really strict at home. When they come to my workshops, they just have the chance to let their hair down, and you really see how much the desire goes up when something is limited.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it seems like a no-brainer, I guess.
Yeah.
And we all mean well, whether we, as the rules that are in school,
Mm-hmm.
teachers actually even in the lunchroom commenting on plates as they go around. We all have really good
Mm-hmm.
intentions. We just need more awareness, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it's about. So I'm a certified intuitive eating counselor. I'm also a certified holistic health coach, and I really do believe eating nutrient dense foods allows our body to thrive. I just don't believe in demonizing food because I've seen the rebellion, and I've seen the issue it causes, right? And the only way to actually truly have freedom with food and to truly get to a place in which nourishing our body becomes a joy is to drop the labels and to drop the food rules. That is the only way. Otherwise we're constantly caught up in this state of rebellion. And sadly eating disorders are on the rise, right? So that's kind of also one of the reasons we're having this conversation, is all of this restriction, all of this fear, our whole culture, right? Diet culture, like even wellness culture that's rooted in diet culture, it creates us fear. And so that fear, our kids take it on, and sadly, it can lead to disordered eating, eating disorders. And we want to do our best to kind of to prevent that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So many good things in all of that. And so simple, really. Um, and yet, I guess again,
Simple,
it's
but
that,
not easy, right?
yeah,
Simple, but lived out, it's not
yeah,
easy because of the culture we live in, because of diet culture. Yeah.
yep. We just went camping in the desert, and when you strip away the screens and you're living in your camper van and we have a little fridge in there, and the relationship to food is just so much easier. Just, I guess, also mindfully preparing the food,
Mm-hmm.
your time. And as a family, we're all together. Like my daughter, there's no screens, right?
Yeah.
She might be behind a book or something, reading a book, but preparing the food is like the most exciting
Mm-hmm.
thing. And so we join together. And yeah, I think it is just modern society and stripping away
Mm-hmm.
um, the complexity that, first of all, the pace of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
convenience, and you've talked about this too, how fast we eat,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um,
Yeah.
the speed at which, I guess it detaches
Yeah.
us from listening.
Yeah. And that's also linked to the diet culture mentality, and also like that rebellious state, right? That feeling like we have to eat it really fast because maybe we feel like we shouldn't have it. So it actually, I teach a lot of mindfulness as well, but it really does block our ability to be mindful when we feel like we don't have full permission. Whereas if you feel like you have full permission to have the brownies or whatever, right? If you feel like you have full permission to have those, like I had, you see my story this morning, I had like gingerbread with like
Yeah,
frosting on, but
it looks.
there's no urgency to eat it. Like I can eat a piece mindfully, and I may have more, I may not. It's like not a big deal. It hasn't crossed my mind since I ate it this morning, except for talking to you now. And that's how eating is supposed to be. It's not supposed to feel heavy and burdensome. It's just supposed to be like, okay, like I'm eating it and we can enjoy it mindfully, unless we have a lot of labels attached to it. And sadly, it's no one's fault. It's just the way that diet culture is. Like it's ingrained in us. So we have to learn a different way, you know?
Yeah, diet culture, and then I guess just marketing.
Marketing,
All.
yeah. The fault of marketing, I should say that. Yeah, it is the
Yeah.
fault of
Um, I guess in terms of like the rebellious nature of kids in puberty that they love is teaching them how the marketing is tricking them,
mhm.
because then they feel like savvy, like they have a leg up, and like being a detective and figuring out, the just like last week I had a group of students and we talked about just when you enter the grocery store, the layout and where everything is and how colorful, those cereal boxes are. And then also we talked about when you go to the farmer's market, and if you're really listening to your body and when you're browsing, like foods will actually call out to you, the ones that your body needs at that moment. But kids love, again, giving them that sense of
Mhm.
agency to listen and experiment
Mhm.
and see where things land.
Yeah. I love that. So you've done some educating around, eating disorder awareness and all of that, correct? Do you want to take a moment to talk about that, whatever direction it takes you in?
Sure, yeah. So for 2 decades now, I've been a body image educator. The curriculum was published, the original curriculum, by the National Eating Disorder Association. And then, I've kind of run with it, and adapted it, working with lots of experts through the years. And it starts by celebrating growth. I think puberty's always had a bad reputation of being this awkward time, but instead flipping it to having an attitude of gratitude that our bodies are growing. And then there is, as I mentioned a little bit, like a media literacy component where we're thinking about the messaging that's coming to us, from advertisements, from commercials, and we're dissecting it to try to just think about what's the goal here of this messaging that's coming, and just being aware of, you know. And then my Post-it fell on the ground.
All good.
Food is fun. So this is a tricky one because even the youngest kids are already coming in with a perception of the good, bad, you know, dichotomy. And so really, again, trying to strip all of that back to just remind them, you know, how fun it is to prepare that food, to eat that food, and to enjoy it. And I coach parents too. So it's so hard for us and the kids and the parents, all of us. It's so confusing what is healthy and not healthy, and what a loaded word healthy is. And adding in the mental health in that too. The joy of eating birthday cake, the joy of all the cultural celebrations that do focus on sweet foods, and honoring those traditions and that cultural, you know. So food is fun. Body function. So especially because my focus, you know, is obviously on girls. There's from when girls are born, you know, they're often told they're so pretty versus really focusing on how smart they are and what their bodies can do. So body function, really focusing on that. We get into genetics a lot, so just reminding us what makes us truly unique. And what's tied in with genetics too is understanding that our metabolism is genetic. So we're going to be all of these diverse shapes and sizes, and we're going to be what we're meant to be. And the more we strike up against trying to change that, you know, things get tricky. You know, we want to accept ourselves. Screens, just looking at, you know, the impacts of screens, digital literacy. And then finally, I encourage parents to embrace diversity in terms of, like, literally we're on Instagram right now as a platform, you know, training your feed so that you're seeing diversity in all of its different forms. And for kids who are not on Instagram, they're still watching TV and movies, and in the books that they choose, asking them to be conscious of that. As humans, our brains are actually biased to compare ourselves to people that we think look better or are better than us. And in the past, that bias allowed us to maybe become, like, adapt as human beings to become better, but it's flawed now because we are comparing ourselves to fake images, you know, to filtered, photoshopped. And so if we have this bias to compare ourselves to people that we think are better than us, but we're comparing ourselves to, like, a Barbie figure, you know, there's something wrong in that mix. That's clearly going to be very unbalanced, unrealistic, unnatural. And so just raising that awareness. We can actually intentionally compare ourselves to a diversity of people. You can catch yourself actually in a moment of, oh, I'm comparing myself to this person. And then you can step back and widen your lens and compare yourself to a lot of other people. As we think like scientists, so we're going to do the comparing. It's hard to silence that. It's impossible to silence the comparing. But if you broaden your lens and decide then to take in all of the people you didn't choose to compare yourselves to, you know, there are so many human beings out there, then that can give you healthy perspective.
Yeah. And I also think one of the things I teach on is non-judgmental awareness. So even cultivating the ability to take a step back and notice that you're comparing, like kind of stepping, I guess, like outside yourself, so to speak, and being like, wow, that's interesting that in this moment, for some reason, I have this urge to compare myself. You know, I feel like that can be a powerful tool, and that's something I teach also, to just kind of observe our behavior without judging ourselves for having the behavior.
Yes, it's powerful to, like you said, step out, because sometimes too, then that makes you realize how little, you know, we're one human being on this complex planet, and that's, I guess, another empowering thing with my classes is really tapping the kids into their sense of purpose,
Mm.
into a larger, how do you want to make the planet a better place? And tweens are really passionate about those topics. Um, and so, yeah, step one of body literacy is the noticing,
Yeah.
noticing.
Mm-hmm. Noticing, yeah, I love it. Without judgment, just noticing, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to not have that judgment there, but ideally,
Yeah,
yes.
hard. And I think also like working with children. I don't work with children. I have my own children, but I don't work with children. So I'm sure it's a different dynamic as well. So, but I do agree. Oh my gosh. And just like the body literacy, like what you're talking about, the body attunement, interoceptive awareness, it's all like basically the same thing. I respect so much that you are teaching to children, right? I teach that to adults. And it took me a long time to even get back to that place myself, right? We're all born with the ability to do that. But diet culture, all these different messages that teach us it's bad to listen to our body and all of this, it really creates this big obstacle that gets in the way, right? So we have to relearn how to do that. But there you are teaching children how to do that. And I think that's so impactful and so powerful.
And and it's easier with kids because they don't have all these years of hearing the messaging. I mean, really, their primary complaint is the adults in their lives are steering them in these other directions, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's well-meaning parents, well-meaning teachers, well-meaning pediatricians, all of
Yeah.
these experts that it's just a different education that we all grew up with, in terms of healthy foods.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember is like I believe most people have the best interest, right, in mind for their child or even pediatricians and all of this. But if everyone's trained differently, it's hard to know, right? If you don't know what you don't know, and if you're caught up in diet culture, that's the only lens you know how to teach through. If you don't know how to tune into your own body, if you don't know how to have that conversation with your body and check in, it's going to be really hard to teach that to somebody else or to pass that along. And so I think, for me, I work with adults and help them do that, right? And you're working with kids and help them do that. And I just love it. I think it's really important work.
Yeah. And sometimes actually, so there are mother-daughter workshops, and later on, the moms say that they got just as much out of it. And that actually, in becoming a role model for their child, they're doing so much healing themselves, realizing, that they want to be that powerful role model for their daughter. So
do you want to give like 3 tips so I'm a mom, my kids are about to approach puberty, or maybe there's some other parents out there and their children are navigating puberty. What are like 3 tips to help us empower our children, start going through this?
um, celebrate growth, and so as our bodies are growing and changing, embracing that, having an attitude of gratitude that our bodies are healthy and growing. These pandemic kids, we've done something powerful. We've survived a pandemic, and in our deepest core, we can appreciate that we are healthy. And that's like the most important thing. And the third thing would be focus on body functionality. So celebrate all the amazing things our bodies can do. And yeah, so that would be 3 tips. I am going to do a deeper dive this Tuesday, March 5th at noon Pacific time. I'm leading a parent education workshop. It's called You Glow Girl, and it's not about like the glow that we think about in terms of our appearance, but the glow that comes from the inside. And kids get that too when you tell them about, when you see somebody and they just glow from the inside. And so, yeah, that's this Tuesday, March 5th. And you can learn more on my website, girlpowerscience.com. Follow me here.
Love it.
And tell me more about your journey to food freedom. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I have a program. It's called Journey to Freedom. So this is Eating Disorder Awareness Week, so I will throw in there that if you have an eating disorder, this is not the right program for you. So I like to make that really clear because I think we need to be mindful and careful of that, right? But if you don't have an eating disorder and you're working on healing your relationship with food, maybe you struggle with disordered eating. They are different. Eating disorder and disordered eating are different. And I think many people have disordered eating because of diet culture. This program, Journey to Freedom, it's an intuitive eating program. And so it teaches you how to eat intuitively, because contrary to what many people believe, it doesn't come naturally, right? Even though we're born with it, once we get exposed to diet culture's messages, it becomes a big obstacle, and we have to relearn how to eat intuitively and how to really tune into our body, have that conversation with our body. So eating just becomes easy and peaceful, and we can get out of our mind and back into our life. So yeah, so that is the program that I have, and you can also find out more on my page.
Beautiful. So fun to chat with you.
Yeah, I love it. So thank you so much for meeting with me. If anybody has any questions, feel free to just DM us, let us know. We're happy to answer anything.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Have an amazing day. Bye.